In this video, I'm going to teach you how to upcycle a men's button-down shirt to make an elastic waist skirt for a kid. Stay tuned to the end where I teach you how to insert elastic through a channel. Hi guys, I'm Alexa, author of Sewing for Kids, and this is my channel, Alexa Teach Me How to Sew. The goal is to teach you how to sew while making cute and trendy projects. If you're interested in that, please like and subscribe. When quarantine first started, I started teaching virtually, and because a lot of fabric stores were closed, we were using things from home. And upcycling old clothes is a really useful thing to know how to do. My first projects were upcycled clothing. Let's jump in. Gather your materials. You're going to need an old men's button-down shirt. You can see I already have a sleeve cut off because I used that for another project. 1 yard of 1-inch elastic and a safety pin, a sewing machine and thread, pins and a pin cushion, scissors, paper and fabric, an iron and ironing board, a tape measure and a ruler, chalk, a fabric marker or a pencil, just something you can draw on fabric with. If you have a darker fabric, you're going to want a lighter colored pencil or chalk, and a seam ripper just in case. Once you've gathered your materials, you should start by taking your measurements. You're going to measure around your hips, which is the widest part around your bum. Write this measurement down. Then decide where you want your skirt to sit. For most children, they like to wear the skirt from their high waist, which is around the belly button and the smallest part of the waist, down to just about above the knee. Typically, I find this measurement is around 16 inches. Take that measurement too. You're going to add 6 inches to your hip measurement and 2 inches to your length measurement. So my measurements that I've written down are 36 by 18, and that's the size of the rectangle that we're going to want to make this skirt. Start by laying out your shirt, making sure the buttons are buttoned and it's all centered and flat. Now measure your underarm seam to the bottom of the shirt at the shortest spot. For me, that's 17 inches. And measure across from underarm to underarm. For me, that's 23 inches. The width of the skirt is going to be the measurement that we got from underarm to underarm, which for me is 23 inches, but I'm going to multiply that times 2 because there's a front and a back, and that's going to give me 46 inches. The width is enough for me because the width that I measured on the shirt is 46 inches, and the width that I need minimum is 36 inches, so I have an extra 10 inches. Now I can either cut the width down to 36 so that I have a less puffy skirt, or I can leave it at 46 and it would just mean that my skirt will be a little bit fuller and have a little more gathering. And I like it to have a little extra gathering, so I'm going to leave it. Plus, it's a little bit easier and I don't have to sew as much. As for the length, I'm at 17 inches and I really want 18 inches. I have this curve at the bottom of my skirt, so only the sides are going to be 17 inches, but the middle and the front and the back are actually going to be a little bit longer. Looks like I've got about 2 extra inches there, so I think I'll be fine. Now I'm going to draw a line from underarm to underarm. I'm going to take my fabric scissors and cut it out. I'll save the top of the shirt for another project. If your underarms are a bit curved out like mine are, what we want to do is we want to just take it in the machine and straighten those lines out. Turn your shirt inside out. You can see that my shirt curves out like this, so I'm just going to take a ruler and just draw a straight line to the top. We only really need to straighten out the top 4 or 5 inches because this is where we're going to create the casing and insert the elastic, so we want this to be as easy as possible to do. Whoops! Put a pin in it. Take it over to your sewing machine and make sure you're on the right stitch and the right length. Now sew a straight line along that line that we just drew. Don't forget to backstitch. We're going to repeat this process on the other side. Draw your line, put a pin in it, and sew. And now you can cut a little bit of the seam allowance off just like this. You can see I'm leaving about a 1/2 inch of seam allowance. Before we head over to the ironing board, I'm going to remove the top button and I'm going to pin the top of the shirt in place and I'm going to tack this down. And I'm going to tack both sides down. So you'll see it looks like this. I've stitched both sides of this opening. Now I can cut any loose threads. Now we're going to create the casing for the elastic. Children, ask a parent to iron for you, and adults, be careful. You're going to open up your shirt so it's in a circle, You can start anywhere, but put the opposite side underneath your ironing board so it's out of the way. We're going to start by ironing a 1/2 inch fold. You can use a ruler for this if you need. When we iron our second fold, this is really important to get the sizing correctly, so you will want to take a ruler or tape measure out now. The rule of thumb is that you want to make the casing about a 1/2 inch bigger than the elastic. That's going to give you just a little bit more room for error. So if you have 1 inch elastic, make your second fold 1.5 inches. For this part, you can pin as you go to hold things in place. You're going to put a set of double pins over one of the seams. So I'm going to do it over my center front seam because that's going to be thick and it's going to be the hardest part to get my elastic into. What do I mean by double pins? 2 pins right next to each other, or making an X like this, and then 2 sets of those means 1 and 2 sets of them. On either side of the seam, this is going to indicate a starting point and a stopping point for sewing. So when I start, I'm going to start at these double pins, I'm going to sew all the way around, and then I'm going to stop at these double pins. Now get your machine out. When we get started sewing, we're going to start at the second set of double pins. So if there's 2 in a row, we're going to the second ones. And you can start just in front of them. I'm going to put my presser foot down and put my needle down. When I put my needle down, I'm going to make sure that I'm about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge of the inside fold. Now I'm going to remove my 2 double pins, backstitch, and sew around the whole thing. You can remove this part of your sewing machine, and this will allow you to sew in a circle because now all my fabric is out of the way. I'm going to keep my stitch line very close to the edge of that inside fold, removing my pins as I go. If I get too far in, I'm just going to move my fabric back over so I'm closer to the edge again. And I keep turning my fabric and pulling it out from underneath. When I get to the second set of double pins, I've gone all the way around, I'm going to remove them, backstitch, and cut my thread. Now you're going to measure the waist of whoever you're sewing this skirt for, and you're going to deduct 2 inches from that measurement. For example, the measurement I got was 27 inches, so I'm going to cut my elastic to 25 inches. Get your safety pin out, pin it to your elastic so that it goes in and out like a pin would, like that. Close your safety pin. Using the safety pin as your guide, stick your safety pin and elastic into the opening and push it through the channel that we just created. Be patient with yourself because this has a bit of a learning curve. So you can see my safety pin is right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scrunch the fabric over the safety pin until I can't scrunch much more. I'm going to hold the end of the safety pin, so my safety pin is right here. I'm holding the end of it with my left hand, and I'm pulling the fabric over the elastic with my right hand. And then I'm going to just keep repeating this. I scrunch the fabric, scrunching, scrunching, scrunching. I hold the safety pin, but not all the bunched up fabric. And then I'm going to slide the fabric over the elastic. Scrunching the fabric over the safety pin, hold the safety pin, gliding the fabric, scrunch the fabric over the safety pin, glide the fabric over the elastic. You'll notice once you get a little bit closer to the end, your elastic starts to get a little bit shorter. Then you could just take a straight pin and pin the elastic down so you don't lose it into this channel. If you lose the elastic in the channel, you have to finish getting the elastic out and then redo it all again. It's not very fun, but it's good practice. So keep scrunching and sliding. With a bigger safety pin, it's much faster to do this. Once you get to the end, you can pull your elastic out. You're going to want to match up the 2 ends of your elastic and pin them together. Remove your safety pin. Before you try it on, we need to sew these 2 ends of the elastic together. I'm going to put the arm back on my sewing machine, and you're going to put these 2 ends of elastic in, put your presser foot down, and you're going to sew over it a whole bunch, back and forth, back and forth. So you're going to go all the way forward, all the way backward, all the way forward, all the way back, maybe 3 to 5 times. You really want this secure. Stretch the elastic so that it goes into your skirt and try it on. If it fits, then that's great. We can go ahead and close up this hole. If it doesn't fit, take your elastic back out and tighten it as you need to. This fits great. So what I'm gonna do is scrunch my elastic in, and I'm going to fold underneath this piece here. So I'm just gonna pin on the two sides because it's a little bit too hard for me to pin on the center here. I'm gonna take my arm off again, and now I'm going to line up my needle with my last stitches, back stitching about a 1/2 inch, taking out my pins as I go. You want this piece to be really flat as you're sewing. So if you need to push the fabric back a little bit, keep trying to do that. Go about a 1/2 inch past my other stitches and back stitch again. Cutting all my threads. Turning my skirt right side out. It's so cute. Thank you so much for watching how to make a skirt from an upcycled shirt. If you enjoyed it and you learned something, if you'd like to see more like it, please like and subscribe. And don't be shy. If you have any questions about the project or any comments that you'd like to leave, I'd love to hear from you.